Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a relationship that's, well, it's complicated. It's one defined by shared bloodlines, but also decades of bloodshed. We're talking, of course, about the fraught bond between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So take a look at this. It might just look like a fence, right? But it's so much more than that. It's really a symbol of a deep, complex, and frankly, often violent conflict. We're going to peel back the layers and get to the heart of what's really driving the tensions between these two nations.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with a colonial-era border, then jump into a dangerous game of proxy warfare. After that, we'll look at the devastating blowback from all this, understand the very real human cost, and finally, think about what the future might hold.
Okay, first up, to really get a handle on this conflict, we have to rewind the clock, way back, more than a century ago. It all starts with a line drawn on a map, a line that, you could say, has been bleeding ever since.
So this right here, this is the infamous Durand Line. Now, on paper, it was an agreement between the British Empire and the Emir of Afghanistan. But here's the thing. From the absolute get-go, Afghanistan has said, hold on a second, they've always questioned its legitimacy, arguing it was signed under pressure and was never supposed to be some permanent international border.
And you can see just how fast things went south. I mean, look at this timeline. In 1947, when Pakistan is trying to join the UN, who's the only country to vote against it? Afghanistan. And it was all because of this border. Then, just a couple of years later, a huge assembly in Kabul just flat out rejects the line entirely. That, right there, set the stage for decades of bad blood. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. This wasn't just some high-level political squabble. No, this was deeply, deeply personal. Imagine a line being drawn right through your neighborhood, right through your family. It just sliced through communities, splitting up families and tribes who had everything in common: language, culture, a whole way of life.
Okay, so that's the border. But the story doesn't stop there. Next up, we're going to see how this dispute evolved, or maybe devolved, into something way more dangerous: a covert game of influence, a proxy war.
You'll hear this term a lot: strategic depth. For Pakistan's military, this was the name of the game. The thinking was pretty straightforward. If we have a friendly, pro-Pakistan government in Afghanistan, that gives us a buffer, a strategic advantage against our main rival, India. And how do you make sure you have a friendly government? Well, for them, the answer was proxy warfare. And look, this policy wasn't exactly a well-kept secret. It played out pretty much in the open for decades. I mean, you can trace it step by step. In the late 60s, they started backing dissidents. In the 80s, during the Soviet invasion, they were the main pipeline for U.S. support to the Mujahideen. By the 90s, they were giving direct military help to the Taliban, which is a huge reason they took over the country. And even after 9/11, that quiet support, it kept going.
Now, all through this time, especially after 2001, if you asked Pakistani officials, their story was always the same. Nope, not us. A total denial. They insisted the Taliban leadership wasn't in Pakistan at all. But, as we now know, those claims were later shown to be, and this is a direct quote, patently false. This two-faced policy, well, it was about to have some really, really bad consequences.
So you might think this strategy, this game of proxies, was all about Afghanistan. But here's the twist. It didn't stay there. That policy came back home to Pakistan, and it came back in a violent and pretty terrifying way.
And this right here, this lays out the huge central paradox of Pakistan's strategy. On one hand, you have the Afghan Taliban, the TTA. Pakistan saw them as a strategic asset to control Kabul. But on the other hand, an ideological twin was born, the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP. Now, they shared the same radical ideas, the same ethnic roots, but the TTP had a totally different goal. They didn't care about Kabul. They wanted to overthrow the government of Pakistan.
So then, 2021 happens. The Afghan Taliban sweeps back into power. And for the TTP, this was like winning the lottery. All of a sudden, they had safe places to hide out in Afghanistan. They got their hands on all this sophisticated American weaponry that was left behind. Thousands of their fighters were just let out of jail, and seeing their ideological brothers win next door, that gave them a massive, massive shot of adrenaline.
And the result of all that? Just look at this number. A 79% increase in terrorist attacks inside Pakistan in a single year. The policy of strategic depth had, in effect, created a monster. And now, that monster was turning on its own creator. It's a textbook definition, and a really tragic one, of blowback.
Okay, we've talked a lot about strategy and geopolitics, but what does all of this actually mean for the people on the ground? Let's take a look at the very real human impact of this conflict. for the people just trying to live their lives.
Just take a second and look at this. This is a satellite image of a village. And that line cutting right through it, that's the fence Pakistan started building back in 2017. It literally cuts homes in half. It divides farms, it slices communities right in two. Think about that. What used to be a simple walkover to your neighbor's house now means you have to cross a militarized international border.
And this quote from a local elder just says it all. The fence is passing not through the land, but through our hearts. You have to understand, for generations, life just flowed across this area. People went to weddings, funerals, they went to markets on both sides. It was one community. And then, almost overnight, this fence just ended all of it.
And the human toll has just skyrocketed. Because of these TTP attacks, Pakistan has started forcing hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees to go back. We're talking about people who have lived in Pakistan for decades, sometimes their whole lives, and they're being sent back to a country with a shattered economy where women and girls can't even go to school or work. Many are terrified they'll be targeted by the Taliban. And get this, 85% of them say they're leaving because they're afraid of being arrested by Pakistani police. It's a full-blown humanitarian crisis. So, that brings us to today. Where does all of this leave them? Well, right now, the two countries seem to be locked in this dangerous, downward spiral of mistrust. And the crazy part is, their futures are more tangled up than ever before.
And here's the fundamental problem for Pakistan today. Their old strategic asset, the Afghan Taliban, is basically best friends with their number one enemy, the TTP. They're connected by ideology, by ethnicity, by a shared history of fighting together. So even though Pakistan keeps demanding that the Afghan Taliban do something about the TTP, they've been either unwilling or maybe unable to kick them out.
And what you get is, well, what you see today. You get barbed wire fences and angry protests. You get frequent clashes along the border. You get a complete and total breakdown of trust. The whole relationship has just become a cycle of accusations and payback, with very little space left for actually talking things out. Which all leads us back to the biggest, most important question. It started with a line on a map. That led to a policy of using proxies. That created this devastating blowback. And all of it came at an incredible human cost. So, for the millions of people, the Pashtuns, the refugees, the everyday citizens on both sides of that fence, what does the future hold when you're trapped in a history this tragic and this tangled?